Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Album Fight Club. I am Mike Kane, your host. I'm here with my cackling co-host, Cody. Cody, how are you?
Mike, it's another day in paradise, buddy.
Cody, it's another Album Fight Club. It is another one. And you've got the giggles. I've got, a sense of strong adoration to what we're going to talk about today, as do you. Not to say that I'm the only fan of what we're about to talk about. But this one's a bit of a doozy in the most complete sense, because we are talking about a band called Between the Buried and Me. We are talking about two of their records, both of them called Colors, but one of them is called Colors 2, as in the sequel. And I want to start this by giving a little anecdote, which is to say that our friend Jason Adams, who was on the third episode of this podcast, we said that we would have many guests after Jason, and he's literally been the only one, and we're on like episode 15 at this point. But I was working with him over the summer at a Merrill store, and he made the passing comment to me that he would love to see a show with either you, me, or both of us at some point, like a heavy metal concert of some kind, not huge 10,000 people, just like small, intimate, 1,000 people concert. And I was like, I got you. Whenever I see it come up, I'll let you know. And then months passed, and like nothing really piqued my interest. I was like, man, there's nothing here that's really like striking my fancy. And then Between the Buried and Me announced that they were going to do a Colors experience. One night with Acacia Strain as the opener, they would play Colors 1, and then immediately the following night they would play Colors 2, both albums in their entirety. And so first thought was, oh my Jesus, I have to go see this, because Colors 1 is, well, we'll talk about it. But Colors 2 I haven't seen any of, because I haven't seen Between the Buried and Me live since Parallax 2, which was another album. Regardless, I've not seen any of Colors 2, and I like Colors 2 a lot, so I'm like, man, that would be an awesome way to see like the whole thing played front to back. Second thought was, oh, that'd be perfect for Jason, and would be perfect for Cody, assuming they want to go. And so we organized this whole thing, and then it all came together about 2 weeks ago when we actually went to see the concert in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was a very good time, and then shortly thereafter, Cody was like, we should do an Album Fight Club. And I was like, makes a lot of sense, because it's on the mind. We just experienced both albums live. And so here we are. So I've been a pretty big Between the Buried and Me fan for several years now. This is actually my second time seeing Colors 1 live in its entirety, which I consider myself very blessed to say that. But Cody, what's your experience with this band?
So my side of interesting heavy music has always been more of like post-hardcore in the vein of like Thursday, Seisha, Glassjaw, kind of more like jazzy. That's like the side that it falls into. So getting into Between the Buried and Me over the last couple of months, because Mike was like, hey, we should go see this. And they've been a name that has been thrown around whenever, what is it? Coma Elliptic? Is that the record?
Yep.
Whenever that was announced, I listened to a few songs off of that. But taking the time to actually listen to Colors and then later Colors 2 really blew my mind to how amazing the freedom of music can be once you remove the limitation of genre and you just say, we're going to write something, and whatever comes out of something, we're going to release. And to do it twice in the span of a career, both successful in their own ways, is absolutely amazing. I think that any fan of heavier, more intense, dramatic, driving, pummeling music, if you have not listened to Colors or Colors 2, you should, because there are instances on both of these records where a light bulb will shine and you will have a newfound appreciation for music as an art form in its entirety. Now, that being said, going to see the Colors experience with yourself, myself, and Jason was one of the most fun concert experiences that I've ever had, because it was freeing to watch somebody so new to this style of music as Jason get to experience blast beats and legitimate breakdowns in a real-time format, and just look at his face and occasionally go, oh yeah, he's into it now.
And
He's
to
about
also
it.
be in the same room as a mosh pit, or in the same room as 5 people crowd surfing at once, or in this,
Yeah.
I mean, there was a barrier, so there was no stage diving. But if we could talk about Acacia Strain for a second, one, killer freaking opener, so good. But the second thing was that the funny dichotomy between the Buried Me and Acacia Strain is that between the Buried Me, they obviously play their asses off, but they are not very interested in like really getting the crowd amped up and on the stage or like interacting with them in major ways, which is fine. You know, the band can just do its thing and whatever. Acacia Strain, though, that lead vocalist in their band, he is so into the idea of like people getting on the stage or putting the microphone in the crowd and having somebody sing the lyrics, as opposed to like, he is such the polar opposite. And it's funny because they were the opener. There was one moment between songs the first night where he was literally like, I know we're here for safety and I understand there's safety here and this barrier, etc. But I hate this fucking thing. I want as many people as possible to come over this thing. And the second he said that, that's like inciting violence, basically. Not that, you know, obviously it's a metal concert. You expect moshing and crowd surfing and all that stuff. But the second he said that, it really opened the doors for like you in particular to crowd. I don't know how many times you crowd surfed that first night. It had to be at least like 7.
Yeah, I think it was 10. I think I hit the double digits.
It's wild. And it's funny because
Well, so no, go ahead, Mike.
you were wearing a Hawaiian shirt, which was so like not that it wasn't the vibe. Like obviously you could wear whatever you want, but every time you would go over, Jason and I'd be like, oh, there he is, because you were so easy to spot.
So to diverge from Between the Buried Me and Acacia Strain, there's a reason, in my opinion, that more intense, more unique kind of hardcore, post-hardcore, metalcore, whatever you like to call it, is so important. And it is because of the removal of the concept of a barrier. This is ours. I'm such a fan of hardcore punk in particular because at the end of the day, once you boil it down, like even Between the Buried and Me, or even Acacia Strain, you get a little bigger like Slayer, it's misfits making music for misfits. And the concept of removing the one barrier between artist and appreciator to mean we are all artists. The band we discussed a couple episodes ago, Chariot, Josh Goggin is very famous for always saying, this microphone is your microphone, this stage is your stage. Tonight and forever we'll be free together. That's something very beautiful. And I think the Acacia Strain, in all of their absolute absurd heaviness, really, really got everybody ramped up to enjoy the show together. To remove that anxiety of, I'm going to get kicked in the head. I'm going to get kicked in the head eventually. Fuck it. Everybody's getting kicked in the head. Let's just get the first one out of the way, and then everybody's going to be happy. So that way, by the time Between the Buried and Me came on, to play Colors 1, everybody was in limber. Everybody was amply prepared to push each other and have fun and join in the camaraderie of such a physical, moving, emotional art form that is, I guess, progressive metal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you know, absolute shout out to Acacia Strain. Not that we haven't already talked about them in terms of like them being great, but they were such a killer opener. So good. Played both nights just as Between the Buried and Me did. Very awesome. Very cool. Not an Acacia Strain episode though. So I will just end it there and say, I thought they were amazing. I thought they were a great opener, but we're obviously here to talk about Between the Buried and Me and the 2 albums that they were playing, Colors 1, Colors 2. Now with these 2 records, I feel like some context has to be given because Between the Buried and Me is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in the early 2000s. I'm talking like 2001, 2, 3, somewhere in there they first started, maybe late 90s if I'm not mistaken. So they had a couple records, Silent Circus, the self-titled, Alaska, that came out before Colors eventually did. But Colors comes out in 2007 and just suddenly there's something different going on. Like you can listen to those early records and still find some good stuff there. But for me, at least, and I said this to Cody and Jason, I was like, I don't really love anything Between the Buried and Me until Colors. And then from there on is where like I really start loving their material. In particular, Colors 1, I think is just such a monumental achievement of not only progressive metal, but just music in general. I might have said this on a previous episode. If I didn't, I'll say it now. Colors One is a top 5 record for me. Among all genres, among all music, I think Colors One is absolutely a fundamental part of my existence, a fundamental part of my chemistry when it comes to my views of music, and just a fundamental part of like moments that exist in my brain 24/7. Like they just kind of happen sometimes that I'm not even thinking about it. And I don't like, I'm going to try and talk about it, but it's one of those things where it's like, this record means so much to me and in so many ways that I'm not even sure if I can adequately talk about it in any sort of coherent way. Now, I say all that and say there's also Colors 2, and we'll get to Colors 2. But I'm just going to be upfront and say, for me, Colors 1 is just such a landmark achievement that Colors 2 is also an achievement, but not a landmark one. I think it's a very good album. I think it's got great moments. I do have issue with it, and we'll get to that. But I think what makes sense here, Cody, is just doing what we've done the last several episodes, which is just talking about Colors 1 and then talking about Colors 2. I don't think there's really a track by track here that makes any sense.
No.
Because Colors 2 has quite a few more tracks, even though Colors 2, I think, is like 15-ish minutes longer, but they're both doing similar things. They're both doing similar approaches, but just to talk about each record on its own.
I totally agree. To piggyback off what you said, Mike, I really think that this kind of time in progressive metal, you really almost have 2 lanes. You either get the Between the Buried and Me lane, where it's chaotic, but it has a lot more desire to explore the boundaries of different genres. Like there are songs on Colors 1 where they do little like jazz things, they do little country bebop things, moments like that. But then you have the secondary road, which is the road that I typically veer down, which is like the Dillinger Escape Plan, which is all hands on deck chaos. We should have went to Juilliard chaos. And I think what is very beautiful, especially about Colors 1, is it flows so well. The whole hour and 4 minutes that Colors happens could almost be one giant monumental, almost like Sleep doing Dope Smoker. You know? Just 1 hour of everything that we have. We've kind of hit the circumference of where we're going to go, and now we're just cresting the hill. I think those first 3 Bat Band records are getting here, and I think this is them accepting that to become the version of Between the Buried and Me that we all know and love today, that they have to take the leap into accepting that some of it isn't going to make sense until you hear the whole thing in its entirety. So, in my opinion, Mike, Colors is a record that if you're going to listen to, you should only listen to as a full experience.
Totally
front
agree.
to back. Because when they actually performed it, this was something that I thought was very interesting. When they performed all of Colors 1 and actually all of Colors 2, there was no break. No pause to talk, nothing like that. They came on, Tommy or whatever his name is, played the piano, said, okay, hey, we're Between the Buried and Me. And then for the next hour and 7 minutes or whatever, just performed the record. Which not only is an immense feat in terms of songwriting and musicianship, but also in pure stamina. Because none of these songs are simple.
No, not at all.
None of this is simple. The only break that you are getting, in my opinion, is the intro to Informal Gluttony,
Mm-hmm.
and then the beginning of Viridian to the end of White Walls. Those maybe, in combination, 2 minutes is the only respite that you're getting from an hour and 4 minutes of just pummeling musicianship.
You make a great point in that I agree in that it really is just one song. It's not all the songs that it is, even though technically it is. To me, it's just Colors. It's the song Colors.
Right.
Just as Jethro Tull did Thick as a Brick. It's like, it's just one thing that has a lot of different movements. There's a lot of different parts, but together it's this symphonic composition known as Colors. That's how I like to look at it too. Rarely do I listen to just one track. Like, rarely do I listen to just White Walls by itself or a
Right.
prequel to the sequel by itself. It's, look, if I'm committing to Colors, I got to listen to the whole thing front to back because that's just the way it works best. So even going through it and talking about it, I mean, we could just start at track 1 and go through, but my God, I mean, the journey, there's no other album, in my opinion, that has such a complete, perfect journey of the record itself from track 1 to track final than Colors. And in fact, I'll prelude this and then we can really dive in bit by bit. I am totally convinced this album builds to a particular moment that exists in the song White Walls, which is the last song. I believe everything that comes before that moment is just building up to that moment, which, I mean, I could say it now, but I think it's better just to reiterate the idea that this whole album builds up to a singular moment that is like an hour later than the record starts at. But every time I listen to it, it's all the idea behind all of it is that, okay, it's eventually going to get to this particular moment. And Cody knows this moment well because it was the moment I joined him in the pit because I was like, I cannot not be in there when this moment happens. But that's literally at the end of the record pretty much. So the record starts with just this little piano ditty. And it's, you talk about a heavy metal progressive. In some moments they're, they've got like grindcore sensibilities. At other moments, they got like death metal sensibilities. But I wouldn't even stress to call it a progressive metal band. I don't know what to call Between the Buried and Me because so much of their styles and what they're doing is so different. I think they adequately fall into the camp of metal just because the majority of their stuff is heavy in the metal sensibility. But even the first track, Phone Born A, it's like it starts with a piano. It's very soft. It's very quiet. Tommy, who is the vocalist and both the piano player, he's singing in a very melodic, quiet tone. And shortly thereafter, you get some heightened to the boom, 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 and it's like kind of heavy, but not really. I mean, it's very bright, it's very uplifting, it's very not metal. But then very quickly from there, you start diving into more of it, and it like the train really starts rolling. Right, the first part is just like start turning the train on, and then starts rolling down the track. And then eventually it really gets going. But I don't know, Cody, if you want to say anything about the first track.
So, yeah, the first track is just a really beautiful way to... It kind of invites you in. It's like, hey, listen, if you've ever listened to Between the Buried and Me, we're going to get to all of that in a minute. Here, it really feels like this is their attempt at dropping the baggage at the door and going, all right, we're not the band that wrote Alaska. We're writing Colors. It's almost like there is Between the Buried and Me that wrote Parallax 1, Parallax 2, Alaska, the self-titled record. But almost there's this very specific little time where they're just Between the Buried and Me that wrote Colors. And they're almost like a separate identity.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what I think that has allowed them to do, at least on Colors 1, it allows them to just go, hey, whatever we throw at the board, we're doing, man. And it's going to work because we workshopped it. So you get this lovely piano thing, and it comes in almost like this college rock song. Just like, just ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, with like a sweet picking thing. And then it slowly, it does the Willy Wonka train ride into hell, where it just slightly gets heavier and heavier. And you're like, oh, okay, and then you veer into song 2, where one of the funniest experiences of my life was listening to Colors for the first time and going from the first song, like, wow, that's really lovely. Next song, I'll just keep waiting. And it's like, okay, all right, yeah, we're totally into it.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the titles of these songs blow my mind. You get B, The Decade of Statues, which has, in my opinion, the single greatest confirmation that we are now into a heavy record. It's ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-ba.
Yeah, you have to tell your anecdote of what you were going to do at the concert.
Oh, so where we were standing, there was this lovely little handicap accessible area it had like a barrier. It was like up on risers and it had a barrier.
Yeah, slightly raised, slightly above the audience.
Yeah. And so the second that this song hit, I was like, I'm fucking jumping off this thing. Because it is such a animalistic, I wish I could make the noise with my with my mouth. It's just it's like and it turns into like if you closed your eyes and you just thought you were in like Vietnam for a second. Just all hell is broken loose into this song. And it's so wonderful because now we have gone from like college rock to like progressive rock to now we are surely into metal territory.
Yeah, it's bullets whizzing past your face, it's grenades being chucked over you, it's like you're in the foxhole and you don't want to lift your head up because you might get shot. Like it's total destruction.
And it's just so beautiful because the second that they got to this moment of the record live, I just looked over at the pit and I was like, I know exactly where this is about to go. And immediately we saw the very small little mosh pit that had formed just open into this wonderful sea of grown men flailing around. And all I could think to myself was, I have to get into that pit. This is where I have to be for the next hour of my life. But that, Mike, like kind of like you were saying, it's almost hard to talk about this in steps. The only thing that gets cooler for Decade of Statues for me is you then go through this whole heavy section into this like jazz fusion riff battle. And I can't describe it other than it is two guitars playing the same harmony, but one of them is slightly out of key. But it's so fucking killer, dude.
Yeah, there's the funny thing about Between the Buried and Me is that every song we're about to talk about, even though we described it as one song, every single song has a moment in it where you go, what? Who am I listening to? And you mentioned this moment where it just kind of like completely turns on its head of what we had into what we are now listening to. And even like that was one moment, but there's later moments on this album where you're like, I don't even know if I'm listening to metal anymore. Like, I don't know what this is. There's a super infamous moment on a song later. Whatever. Again, it's hard to talk about this whole thing in sequential order because there's just so much happening on this thing. But I think talking about it sequentially is just the way to talk about it. Otherwise, we'll just be jumping from like the 50-minute mark back to the 20-minute mark, back to the 45-minute mark. And it's like, okay, let's try and keep some semblance here. So yes, you're right. Decade of Statues is literally, it's the train going 100 miles per hour now. Like now we're fully on board. And you get all this weird stuff and there's all these like weird moments, but it always remains like totally in your face now. Right up until the moment it stops and you hear this gong hit.
Yep.
And you get these tribal drums and it's like, what? Like, are we in like deep jungle now? And you kind of are with the song Informal Gluttony.
Yeah.
Because it's just this progressive metal thing. Like it's Pink Floyd, it's King Crimson, it's what progressive bands do. They just completely turn the dial and now we're somewhere completely different. But man, this tribal intro. And then you get the bass coming in, like joining it, and then you get like the soaring guitars. Oh my God. Such a tone setter. It's so good.
And it's just so impressive how it's 5 people.
Yeah.
It's
5.
5 people managed to make this much noise so coherently, but also at the same time so completely out of touch with everything else that could be happening at the moment. And one of my favorite moments was every single time that I would look up at the stage, the I suppose the lead guitar player who was on stage, that'd be stage right.
Yeah, Paul
did not look at the crowd one time.
No, he's very much interested in looking at his guitar at all times.
He spent an hour and 7 minutes, neck down, 1 foot on this little riser, looking at this guitar. And I totally understand it because having heard these songs live, you cannot miss a second of these songs.
It's hyper focus for like every second of this album.
Yeah, it is Adderall. You're Bradley Cooper in Limitless. This is what Bradley Cooper's character in Limitless should have done. He should have joined Between the Buried and Me.
Yeah, that's what it takes.
Yeah. And then, so what's even crazier though is once you get out of Foamborn, so Decade of Statues and Informal Gluttony, these are both 5 and 6 minute songs. But now you're kind of in the record.
Yeah.
Right? You've kind of started to get that none of this is going to make sense in a really positive way. So then you get out of Informal Gluttony into Son of Nothing.
Well,
which,
hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
So there's this whole middle part of Informal Gluttony, which the intro, you've got this tribal thing going on, bass, all that stuff I mentioned. Nothing to discredit the middle-ish section of this song, which is very much heavy metal. It's very much blast beating. And you get that chorus where, you know, feed me fear, informal. And it's just like the way that Tommy is singing it. It almost sounds like a ghost singing it, if that makes any sense at all. It's so strange. It's so odd. And then the chorus stops right back into the, you know, aggressiveness, back into the chorus. And then to outro the song into the next one, they bring back the tribal drums. And they just like build and build and build until they get back to normal sounding drums to go into like this crazy ass fill, and then boom, 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 go. And then you get Son of Nothing. So I'll let you.
I just don't know what there is to say. It's 11 minutes of just unbridled insanity. This is Colors 1 is like Jacob's Ladder. It's like you were just dying, and the whole way getting to heaven, you were about to experience every memory that you've ever attributed to life. But you can't really tell where they are. And you can't tell what they are, who they are. You just know that you've been here before.
Yeah, Colors to me, I don't, you know, admittedly, I've listened to this record for the better part of like 10, 15 years at this point. I've been a fan of this record. I can't adequately tell you what if the concept of this album is, other than all I think it is just like colors. It's different, vibrant colors of a spectrum of life, of existence, of whatever. So the reason all this sounds so insane and so different from each other is like it's different colors, right? It's just it's the way that red is different from blue, is different from yellow, is different from orange, etc. So you get Son of Nothing, which is like you said, just complete insanity for so much of it. And then there's this moment where it's like they joined the circus, and there's this carny bit with like this ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, and you're like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what this is. This literally comes out of freaking nowhere. It
does.
Nowhere. Yeah, like just out of the blue, this happens. And yet, in spite of that, I can't imagine this song without that moment.
Well, frankly, it's fucking terrifying.
Oh yeah, it's weird.
Because you get to it, and it's like I can only think of metaphors for this record. It's only like, imagine you were a character in a Rob Zombie movie that's not going to survive. You're one of like the teenagers in House of a Thousand Corpses. And you're just in the house now, man. They got you.
Yeah.
You're not walking out of this. And so out of nowhere on this heavy metal record, they go into like this vaudeville circus routine. And being in the crowd for this was unbelievable. Because 16 seconds before, I watched a man like pick up another man and throw him into the pit. And then I look over, and now people were like jazzercising. There's like a dance routine happening. And I'm just like sitting here like my dumb Hawaiian shirt, just like, what is where's Mike? I'm just like slowly looking around, I'm like reassessing my situation. I'm like, I'm gonna die here. Because all that's gonna happen, this is the Between the Buried and Me Colors trick. Do something really crazy. Uh-oh. I hope you're ready to get your neck snapped.
Yeah, it's these moments, like I call it the Carney moment in Son of Nothing. It's these moments where you sort of come back to yourself for a second. You go like, oh, wait a minute. I'm in a concert right now. And you look around and you go, where's Cody? Where's Mike? Where's Jason? Like, where am I? And then as soon as you start to process where you are, and they just go right back into like heaviness. And you're like, oh shit, here we go.
Oh,
like,
fuck.
It's amazing. It's so good. But then you get the last third-ish of this song, which is probably the most like ethereal moment on the entire album, which is throughout from like Foamborn A, first song, to now, we've had every guitar, bass, instrument, whatever, throwing its all into it. And then you get this very quiet guitar strumming moment. You've got these claves going, and it's like, okay, here we go with another Between the Buried and Me. I don't know what the fuck. And everything cuts out except just one guitar and Tommy saying, I'm floating towards the sun, the son of nothing. And it's just like, I'm literally in that moment, my soul has left my body and I'm floating up. Like that's that moment where it's that meme of SpongeBob like floating in the air. Like that's my soul leaving my body in that moment. And the beautiful thing, I've seen this album twice now, happen both times. The beautiful thing is everybody stops. It's complete standstill and everyone's just like slowly swaying and singing this part. And it's the beauty of being in a room with like hundreds of other fans of this record is they all know exactly the feeling. And the feeling is in this moment, stop moshing, stop throwing people, stop getting aggressive. We'll come back to that in a second. But right now, take a breather. Just sing this song with Tommy. And like, it's just beautiful. It's glorious even. And it's moment like I say that, right? And we've got some people probably listening to this who have never heard this record before, don't like heavy music, etc. And I can't quantify how much this album means to me other than just like trying to talk about it. But it's moments like this. It's songs like Son of Nothing where you get all these different avenues of, I love Slayer, but Slayer is Slayer at all times. They never do anything like this. The beauty of Between the Buried and Me is that they're like 16 different bands in one. They can do the heavy shit. They can do the quiet ethereal stuff. They can do literally Circus Carney stuff. They can do the big moment we're about to get to on the next song, and they can do all these things and just like nail it. And the funny thing too is that the crowd is always into it as well. The crowd is right there with them, not like being like, what the fuck, right? Bring back the aggressive stuff, bring back the moshing. Like nobody says that. Everyone's just like, right, we're at this moment, got it.
Yeah, well,
go ahead.
Well, I think the beautiful thing about if someone is not a fan of heavy music and you recommend this record to them, it's almost like the perfect scapegoat because there's not really an instance where they drop it. Like they don't fumble the bag on any of these songs because they're so tight. And I think the beauty of like the Carney section or the little like rodeo section, it's all music. And I think maybe, Mike, why this record means so much to you is because it is a breakneck attempt at allowing music to translate itself into itself. It's the appreciation of other things while also admitting that, man, yeah, I just want there to be like a 7-string guitar. Mm-hmm. I think that's what's so cool about this because there is not a single second on this record where it feels phoned in.
Yeah.
And then, like you were saying, once we get to Ants of the Sky, I mean, dude, I want to make sure this is the song where they start off at like Mach 10.
So this is the song where the first 30 seconds is literally thrash metal.
Yeah.
It's literally thrash. And what's crazy about it is the funny thing about Between the Buried and Me is that they have these moments that are like, I prefer, if I'm going to say this album is like halves, in my opinion, it's one thing. It's colors, right? It's not Foamborn A. It's not Decorative Statues into form. Like for me, it's just one unified thing. But if I'm going to say that this thing is songs, I think from Ants of the Sky to the end is literally perfection in music. Not that everything that came before this isn't. I think it still is. But there's something about Ants of the Sky onward that is just like, in this moment right now, I might change because my favorite album, quote unquote, changes day by day. Like it's this, that, the other. Right now in this moment, I'm quantified to say that this is the best stretch of music I've ever heard is Ants of the Sky to the end of White Walls. Because like you said, it goes from the melodic sort of end of Son of Nothing into literally just thrash, 300 BPM thrash. And what's amazing is they do that, and then they get to the boom, 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 just like reel it right back down, but make it heavy the whole time. Yeah, and some people argue "Ants of the Sky" is the best song on Colors. I don't agree.
Crazy take.
But I don't think it's that crazy at all because I think a song like "Ants of the Sky," someone says that, I'm like, yeah, I see it. It's not what I personally think, but I totally see someone saying this is the best part of the whole album or best song in the whole album because just look at everything it does. It does everything that every song before this did into all of its parts. You got the thrash section. You got the heavy sections. You've got the I'm blanking. The like power chorus in the middle. Fly on in your mind, we will find, like that whole thing, like crazy. at the point where it comes. The guitar work, the drumming, all of it's insane. And it's hard to really say like all the bits and pieces that go into this song. Obviously, it all leads to the end of it, which I don't want to quite talk about yet unless you have something to say more about this song. But when someone says this is the best part of Colors, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get it.
Being in the crowd at this point, I have now crowd surfed like 7 times. I have been back to Mike and Jason 7 times. I'm going to give you like the pit report from where I was at this point. I am directly behind 2 people who smell so bad. And so the only thing that I can think of at this point is like, man, these guys smell awful. But between the Baird and me are fucking killing it right now, dude. And so I finally get back over the barricade, and I'm standing next to Mike. And I just look over for a second, and I'm like, man, I'm glad that I know where we are in the record. Because if I had not listened to any of this music beforehand, I would have thought we were still in the first song and a half. I would have been like, I got another 4 hours of this, dude.
I can only assume that there had to be like 1,000 people there. Maybe that's too much, right? Let's say like 700. Just throw out a number, right? If there were 700 people there, I'd say 650 of them intimately knew Colors, like the back of their hand. Because if you come see this, like you said, if you come see this thing and you've never heard this record, bro, you're lost. You have no clue. Yeah, you have no clue where there's no, like you said, there's no stopping.
No stops.
There's no clear delineation when a song begins and a song ends if you've never heard this record, right? The only reason I know where everything begins and ends because I've heard this thing like 200 times. But for like a newbie, forget about it.
The clearest break that there was the gong and Informal Gluttony. And then from there is 30 minutes until the ending of Viridian into White Walls.
Yeah.
And that's only because they did this like big cymbal ring out into White Walls.
Yeah, the build up.
If you have no clue where you're at, this is a nightmare. This is you are blindfolded in the woods. Because every 30 seconds something new is hitting you right in the head and you're just going, what? Ew. How is this happening?
Something completely different.
How were kids having fun to this? But then the second you take an opportunity to listen to it and you really get into it, you start to go, oh yeah, no, I would absolutely lose my mind to this song.
Yeah, and let's just say there was somebody there who had no clue of this album, just their friend dragged them along, right? Because whatever. And they're in, hopefully they're not deep in the pit, because if they are, God help them, right? They're probably somewhere in the back. They're like, I don't know, dude, this is weird and crazy. And this song's going along, they don't know where they are. And then out of nowhere, all of a sudden, it turns into this deep South Alabama, Texas roadhouse bar, and a hoedown starts happening, which is the big moment of Ants of the Sky. It builds to this literal rodeo hoedown moment where it's like banjo and people are like, arm locking and doing like twists and turns with each other. It literally turns into a country bar where you throw peanuts on the floor. And my God, it's just amazing every time. Like both on record and live, I've seen it. Literally the first time I saw it live, just to give a visual picture of people who are trying to follow along here. When Cody says that he came back to Jason and Mike, the reason why is because Jason didn't want to get in the pit. And that's fine, right? It's Jason's first metal concert. I wouldn't be in there either, right? I wouldn't go 10 feet near it. So for the majority of this, I'm standing with Jason, which is on like, you can think of the venue as like a horseshoe shape. So in the middle of the horseshoe is the floor where the mosh pit and all the crowd mainly is. And then on the horseshoe part, there's like an elevated floor. So you take 2 steps up onto it and there's 2 bars and all this stuff, right? So Jason and I are on like house right elevated. And we've got a really good spot for where we are. And so the hoedown part happens, and I mean, the whole place turns into a goddamn rodeo. It's just like, if people had 10-gallon hats, they'd be throwing them in the air. Like, but that's what's so fun about it. But the first time I saw Colors live, there was no elevated floor. It was literally just one flat floor. So you couldn't escape anything. And this part comes in, and this random dude next to me just like arm locks me. And we start like skipping around in a circle like dumbasses because everybody is, right? Everybody's hooting and hollering and like slapping their knees because that's just what this moment is. And it's such an iconic moment for those who know the album, know the song, know that kind of stuff. I did want to say that I think in the metal genre, this album is extremely iconic.
Oh, yeah.
for metalheads, most metalheads know this album. It's not like Master of Puppets, where people outside of metal know this album, right? Even if you're not a fan of metal, you've probably heard of the name Master of Puppets before. But if you're outside of metal, you've probably never heard of Between the Buried and Me. You've probably never heard of Colors. But for a lot of people, including myself, this thing carries the same weight that Master of Puppets does, that Rain and Blood does. And it's moments like this, which is, it's not at all metal. There's literally like a banjo playing. I mean, it's completely insane. And yet, in spite of that, the second it ends, they're right back into heavy. But they have like a bright sound to the guitar. It's this, but it's like brighter than just like burn, 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 burn. Because, and they go into the next song. But Cody, did you want to say anything about the hoedown moment?
Absolutely unreal to see it realized.
Yep.
I thought that I was drunk because I just look over and everybody, it is like Stevie Ray Vaughan has taken the stage. I immediately just go, where am I? Why am I here? I felt like David Byrne in the Once in a Lifetime video where he's like, this is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful wife. How did I get here? It's all like I experienced ego death in that moment. Because the whole rest of the record, it stays pretty heavy.
Yeah.
It's just this is almost like this moment where it's just like you completely broke the glow stick. And you're just like, everything's here. But hey, that's the beauty of Colors.
Mm-hmm. And so they're keeping this momentum, they're keeping this hype, and then just straight into prequel to the sequel, which I also hear is some people's least favorite track on the record. And that's one where I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I think prequel to the sequel is amazing.
It's such a good song. Track. The intro kills me. But the intro kills me for the reason why I think it's meant to. Because it's just this it's like this Yngwie Malmsteen, just like soaring guitar.
It's like stadium rock.
It is the most soaring guitar you've ever heard in your life. If you close your eyes and you think about a soaring guitar, it is probably this sound. It is like they pulled it from the zeitgeist. They pulled it from everybody's memory and said, we're going to put that sound there. Because it hits and you go, what is this? Because if you listen to the record on Spotify or on CD and you're just skipping through the tracks, it's like piano, heavy, gong, heavy, 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 soaring guitar. And you're just like, why did David Gilmour just pop up out of nowhere?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so hopeful for the first 30 seconds. It's like the happiest guitar solo you've ever heard in your life.
But then quickly jumps off the cliff and starts skydiving towards hell. Because we quickly thereafter get one of my favorite moments on the record, which is, I don't know the exact time count of it, but it's like this heavy ass, just like, oh my God. And this is a moment where, Cody, you were near us at this point. And I literally grabbed Cody's shoulder in one hand, Jason's shoulder in the other, and just start headbanging as hard as I can. I was attempting to throw my neck out because it's like so goddamn heavy. And one of my favorite phrases is planets colliding. This is planets colliding heavy. Like just planetary devastation heavy. And they keep rolling with the heavy stuff right up until the moment we're suddenly in Paris in like some dark alleyway and we get this like accordion out of literally nowhere. And it's like this Ernie. And it's like we're suddenly listening to Parisian back alley music. And it's so weird. Just like the Carney moment was weird. Just like the hoedown moment was weird. And yet, like I said, with all those moments, I can't imagine this record or this song without that moment in it.
Yeah. Part of me thinks they went to a studio, they booked a studio for a month and they said, whatever instruments are in this studio, these are what we're using.
Yeah.
This is what is happening. Because there's no way, people listening at home, you're going to think this is a fever dream. You're going to think Mike and I are both hopped up on cough medicine. You have to listen to it to completely understand how out of nowhere this like gypsy tune just appears.
Yeah.
It's like if you're walking through a dense fog and then you hit a cardboard cutout of a mine. It's just there. And then it just surrounds for like a minute, you know? But man, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Wild. And from there, we get the ending of this song, which blast beating, insanity, taking your face, taking the whole thing and either ripping it off or pounding it into concrete and just dragging it along.
Yeah.
Like, so unbelievably heavy. And they go from the blast beat to the bam, boom, bam, boom, bam, boom, bam, boom. And then they have this moment where God, I can't believe I can't remember. Like, I think it's like cover or color or something, but they just like repeat this word at the end. But right before they get to that, they're doing the boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
like cymbal hit into boom, 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 boom. Oh, bro, it's moments like that where I don't care where I am. I don't care who's around me. I'm taking the closest piece of furniture that I can reasonably lift and chucking it towards somebody. Like, I'm just causing violence in this moment.
It's so heavy that you almost can't even really like fathom it.
Yeah.
You have to, it's a level of aggression that you can't experience until your body allows you to. It's like, it makes you want to lift a car off of like a baby. That's how heavy it is. It comes and then you just go, I hate it. It's so good.
I'm about lifting the car off the baby. I'm taking the car and throwing it on the baby at this moment.
Oh my God. It's just like, and it's so hard to describe because right now there's been 45 minutes of utter chaos that's leading into these next like 2 songs.
Mm-hmm.
And so, is there anything else that you wanted to say about prequel?
No, other than I love it.
Yeah. So then you get to like Viridian, which is so unbelievably weird because it's just like this little duet almost, right? Between the guitar and the bass
Mm-hmm.
and like the drums. It's just this lovely little thing. Shortest song, second shortest song on the record besides Foam Board. And it's so lovely.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It's unbelievable. It brought a tear to my eye hearing this bass player who, during this whole show, Colors 1 and 2, he is doing the most work out of anybody I've ever seen in my entire adult life. He's playing the keys, he's playing bass, like, effectively, and he's also, like, controlling, like, bass drops. It was unbelievable to watch him just, like, step back for a second and just be this, like, melodic, beautiful thing.
Yeah, so his name is Dan Briggs. And if there's any song on this record that audiences who are not aware of this record or don't like metal, etc., need to listen to, it's this song. And the reason why is because, as Cody mentioned, it's just absolutely like beautiful. All it is really is just a short little guitar solo leading into this fucking beautiful bass solo. Like, it's so gorgeous. Some like wind chimes. No vocals at all. There's no heavy anywhere on this song, except in like the last 5 seconds when they're building up to the next song. But this thing, I mean, I've played this for other people, like who are not into metal, and every single time I play it, they go, "Oh my God, what is this? It's gorgeous. It's lovely." And I go, "It's this band. Here's their next song." And then they immediately go, "Ugh, what? No, I don't want that. Bring me back to Viridian," because it's just so beautiful. And it's this palate cleanser that comes literally the second to last song on the record. Of course, the last song is 15 minutes long, but it's this like, okay, you've made it this far. Take a moment to compose yourself, get a drink of water, get the sweat off your brow because we're going right back into it. But right now, we'll give you this lovely little thing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful.
And it was so wonderful to, at this point, I am now standing by Mike and Jason again. I've been into the crowd and I am back out. And I'm looking at everybody in the crowd. And everybody just feels at peace. Because everybody knows that the next song is like the crusher.
Mm-hmm.
The crusher. In my opinion, and maybe Mike, I think this is what we've talked about before. The whole record is a prelude. Really, it should be called Colors to White Walls.
Yep. It is a 50-minute intro to White Walls is what this record is. Yeah.
Because,
I'm totally of that opinion.
Because everybody at home, you go into this song called White Walls. And White Walls could be the template for every progressive metal, power metal, uh, thrash metal, technical metal, deathcore, whatever you want to call it. Because over the next 15 minutes, they outclass everybody at their own game. And it is so unbelievable because it starts off with just like this, like unbelievable guitar riff. And the whole band's playing, right?
Yeah, it's this like propulsive chug
Yeah.
that begins with this boom, 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 and it's just like chugging.
Yep.
But then you get to the guitar solo you mentioned, which is just like it's the one linchpin you have to the whole song is that you'll hear this riff a lot. Everything else though is going to change every second. Everything else is going to change around this one thing.
Yeah. But man, and then they just go into these vocals, and these vocals are so fucking heavy, and you're just sitting there and you're like, wow, this is so fucking heavy.
Yeah. I don't know how to talk about this song other than the last half of it. The first half, all I'll say is that it's just more of greatness. White Walls is my favorite song on this record. It's my favorite BT Bam song. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. And the reason why a lot of that is because, like we mentioned, so much of this song is varied. So much of it is different. And yet it feels like the entire thing this whole album's been building up to is just to get to this song, which is not to say that everything before this has been bad. Obviously not. Everything before this has been perfection. But the beauty of this record for me is that it so adamantly feels like everything just builds to White Walls.
Yeah.
And specifically this one moment, which we'll get to. So, yeah, go ahead.
So you get to this moment, though, which in my opinion is actually my favorite moment in the song, where everybody drops out. And it's...
Well, yeah, go ahead.
It's just this, like... It's just guitar, isn't it?
Yeah, because you're talking about the get out of this closed off circle.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, what happens is they slowly all like wind down a bit, and then you get this final boom from the drums, and then just and then Tommy repeating the phrase "get out of this closed off circle." Like, but doing it like "get out of this," yeah, like one word at a time, and it's so good, and it's at this moment where I see Cody go over the barrier, right? He's crowd surfed for like the umpteenth time. And I see him go over it. And I know it's getting to this moment where Tommy's about to say, get out of this close. And I'm like, Jason, I'm sorry. I got to go. And Cody starts walking towards us. And I literally step down to his level and I go, I'm following you. Just go. And Cody grabs my arm. And I don't think I've ever seen Cody move quicker. And we like fly into the middle of this crowd.
It is so unbelievably beautiful because the thing about heavy music for me is these big crescendos. It's when like you take all of the technicality away for a moment and you just release like what Tommy does. This unbelievable scream. They get to this section where he does this scream and it feels like an atom bomb has just hit the crowd. Because it's so good. And now I am dragging Mike into the pit. Because, Mike, I'm going to let you talk about the moment. Because I think you're going to talk about it so much better. Mike and I, since they announced the show, have talked about this moment. I'm dragging him into the crowd. And now Mike and I are holding hands, shoulder to shoulder, finger pointing. And I believe the lyric is, this is how Lear left when we die.
This is all we have when we die.
This is all we have when we die. I am crying. I have my friend at my shoulder, Hawaiian shirt. It is unbuttoned one button until it is coming fucking off of my body. Throwing myself into this crowd. Because in this moment, it's like the beauty of metal music, man, is that it's like, like I said, we're all just a bunch of little misfits. Pulled us all here. People that I did not know. I've now been jumping onto them. They have carried me. They've been grabbing my ass for the last hour and 10 minutes, throwing me over this barricade. And now I'm here with one of my best friends, a man who I'm going to be in his wedding, shoulder to shoulder, looking at a man we've never met, yelling words that he wrote 20 years ago. That's fucking awesome. That is crazy.
And the best part is all the 500 people around us were doing the exact same thing in that moment, which is everyone was just shouting those lyrics together.
Yep.
And it's like, it's great. It's amazing. And then shortly thereafter, we get like it is literally the world ending, because it's the guitar sweeping, it's the drums blast beating, it's just and it's like it's pure insanity. When so much of this record has been insanity before, it is just pure, complete. Everybody knows the world's about to end.
Yeah.
What do we do? And it's just everyone going like, I don't know what to do. So we're just going psychotic right now.
It's the siren singing, and it is the Cold War siren finally going, rust shaking off as it rings, and your teacher is going, oh fuck, they're dropping the nukes.
Yeah,
get under the table.
Yeah. And so thereafter, this is a hard stop. Everyone stops. And you get, before it was like 10 notes per second.
Yep.
Now it's just this boom, 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 boom. And it's just like, you're like, oh my God, I don't know what's about to happen. But Cody made a perfect metaphor in that the siren is going off, and literally it's like, seek shelter now.
Yeah.
Because if you're not in a bomb shelter, you're dead. And so the sirens have cut off, and you see the nuke coming. You see it coming down towards you, and this boom, 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 boom. And you're like, I'm dead. I don't have anywhere to go. Like, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
And so you just stand there and accept it. And then you get what might possibly be my favorite moment in any record ever, which is, like I said earlier, this whole record, in my opinion, has been building up to one singular moment. And it happens around the 9 minute and 40-ish second mark of this album.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, this song. And so, like I said earlier, I think everything before this is just a 50-minute intro to get to White Walls. Arguably, it's a 58-minute intro to get to this moment, which is this unreal breakdown. It is like the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life when I'm listening to all of Colors at once. Because I know eventually I'm going to get here. And Tommy just screams, White Walls. But the way he is screaming it over this breakdown beat, my God. And I told Cody, I'm like, when this happened, leading up, we had 3 months before we were going to see the show.
We had a very long time.
We had a long time before we were going to see this. And every time we would talk about this concert leading up to it, I told Cody, when this thing happens, I'm going to kill you. Like, I'm just going to go animalistic and rip your throat out. And what's funny is that we were both in the pit when this moment happens. And honestly, audience, I can't tell you what happened. I don't remember this moment. And it sounds awful, but what's funny about it is that, like, my brain just shut off. Like, whoever Mike was, he was gone. And my body just did something. I can only assume I have to assume I was like moshing heavily, right? Because I don't remember exactly what else I would have been doing in that moment other than that. But I promise you that literally I don't remember that moment. And we just saw this concert like 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Like, roughly.
So
when that moment happened, Mike was not there. It was just some other thing took over my body. And then I came back around when that thing ended.
So what happens is, you get the nastiest guitar tone that you've ever heard in your life doing that. It's this run down. It's this and it sounds like an old ogre talking. It's the only way I can describe it. It's like this feral organ into this like cataclysmic breakdown. And so Mike and I are shoulder to shoulder. I pull Mike up as we get to this moment in the song, because I'm like, someone is gonna start throwing fucking punches. Mm-hmm. I get Mike, and as Mike and I get pushed forward, the three people in front of us, Mike's eyes are in the back of his head for clarity.
I can't tell you what happened, honestly.
This is what happened. The three people in front of us fall down. That is how many people immediately start shoving forward. So now it is me and Mike as the fucking wall stopping this pit from overflowing onto the 20 rows of people in front of us who were just trying to have a good time.
It's funny because the audience, you could break them down in three sectors, which is the front third are there to get close to the band, try and get their attention and blow kisses and wave at them. But they're also into it. Like, they're headbanging, they're throwing up the horns. The back third of the audience is just there to watch the show. They are not interested in being physical at all.
They're standing there.
And, they'll bob their head and they'll throw up the horns, but they're not trying to get physical at all. It's that middle third of the audience that wants to kill people. That's the one where if you go in that middle third, you better be prepared because you're going to get punched in the face, kicked in the ass, and that's where we were. What happened in this moment was the front third got eliminated.
They got crushed.
Because the middle third swept into the front third, and all of a sudden it was just like this blender of just human bodies.
Well, so what's so funny is because I am now trying to get Mike to my side. I'm like, I need you to get over here because people are trying to get on to Mike to get over. And I'm like, I do not want Mike to get hurt.
Oh, well, I mean, I went in there knowing that
God.
I knew what I was getting into in that moment.
So we get to the ending of this fucking breakdown in White Walls. And I just look over at Mike and I'm like, get me up. Get me out of this crowd. And I've never seen you so strong. I've known you for a while.
Oh, it was bull energy.
Single like a fireman's carry.
Yeah.
Or if you were to push your friend over a fence, 1 foot jousts me. And I'm now on top of people I didn't know Mike was so strong. What is happening?
Look, when you play that breakdown in colors, I become the juggernaut. I could run through walls when that thing happens.
But it's just such a wonderful example of just everything coming together. And it only happens for maybe 15 seconds.
Yeah, that's the craziest part is that this moment I'm talking about. The whole album builds up to this moment that is literally, like Cody said, 15 seconds at most.
Yeah.
It starts, 4 measures later, it's over. And in spite of that, it's one of my favorite things I've ever heard in my life is that moment. And you still have 5 minutes left of the song. It's not even over yet.
Yeah.
But what the last 5 minutes is literally just coasting down from that moment. The climax of the record has just happened. Everything else is crazy guitars, but not crazy heavy. It's crazy sweeping, soaring guitars. Yeah. Everyone's still in it though, but it all just it's slowly drifts its way back down to earth after you just got shot to the moon.
It is unbelievable. Because the way that it transitions out of that song is almost like you were hitting the credits, right? It's kind of all of the super technical stuff is done. And it's just now really emotional guitar playing.
Yeah.
It's just these big emotional chords. Everybody is on fire. And so this is, Mike, I wanted to mention this because this is the one thing that I have a gripe with Between the Buried and Me, and specifically their fans.
Go.
I have now left Mike in the pit. I am over
Cody. I don't know where Cody is at this point. He is gone.
I watch Mike. I depart Mike like a wave cresting the sea. I'm just all right, bye, Mike. Security catches me. This one security guard he must have been paid overtime.
He had to. He did his work that night.
He must have carried 2,000 pounds worth of people over that barricade onto the floor safely. I go to run back into the crowd to find Mike because we are in the point in the crowd of the show where it's whoever has not moshed is going to mosh. They're going in there to kill somebody. And in my brain, I'm I cannot let my poor friend Mike get his head cracked open by some meathead to Between the Buried and Me. So I go to get back into the crowd. And the only way I can describe it is he looks like a newspaper editor. He's small, lanky. He's the size of our friend Zach Kane, but not built. He's just this tiny little guy. I go to get in front of him because I'm trying to get back into the crowd. And he looks at me and he stops me and he sticks his leg out in front of me. The concert is still happening.
Music is still playing.
They're in the ending of this song. And he goes, some of us are trying to enjoy the show. My brother in Christ. We just watched an atom bomb hit New Mexico.
And you have to wonder, how many people went, why you? How many people went by him in the last hour and 5 minutes? It had to be 30 at least. And now all of a sudden he's no, stop.
He pulled his pants up. He said, no one is getting past me the last 5 minutes of this song.
Such a douchebag move.
Dude. So now I have to go stamp, and I'm so worried about Mike. Because in my brain, I'm Mike is going to get fucking
Joey, you have to understand that White Walls, like that's the song I will die to. Like if I die a glorious death to White Walls, I'm fine with that. And the funny thing is that after, so here's my side of it. Cody goes over the wall, right? He goes over the barricade. He's gone. I don't know where Cody is. And for the next whole 10 minutes, I don't know where Cody doesn't come back. So I'm like, oh, Cody's just with Jason or something. I have, this is probably my, I don't know, 12th concert in small venues like this, where you're not like way up in a stadium somewhere so you can see everybody. I assure you that in the last 5 minutes of this concert, which is the last 5 minutes of White Walls, there had to be 15 people crowd surfing at once. Like, it was the second you went over, I literally helped like 6 more other people up.
Yeah.
Like in the span of 2 minutes. It was crazy. I've never seen this happen.
It was insane to watch happen. Because I'm walking back over to Jason. And all I see is like everybody but Mike. It's like everybody at the show but Mike Kane is coming over this barricade. And I keep looking, like, where's Mike? I'm like, where's Mike? And it's like women, children, grown men, like grandparents, newborn babies. I'm like, holy shit, how many people are in this room?
Yeah.
Oh my God. And the poor security at this point are like sweating.
Yeah, they don't know what to do because there's only 3 of them.
It's 3 security
and there's
guards.
15 people coming towards them, and it's like, someone's just dropping. Like I can't catch 15 people.
Yeah, it was one man. I knew who it was going to be. He's like bigger, had a beard. I see him start to crest, and I can see the look on his face where he's like, "I'm gonna fall," and he just gets up. He's like, "All right,
like a sack of bricks." Yep.
Yep.
You got to accept it.
Yeah.
But, it's the end of the album. And if we could get back to the album for a second. No, it's great. I think talking about the concert is warranted for this because we just saw these 2 records literally played live front to back. So the end of this album, like I said earlier, it's all just cresting down from the breakdown moment that happened. But the beautiful thing is that it's like happening in sectors where like full band's there, you get your crazy guitar solo, and then just like slowly. And what the beautiful thing is, the last thing we hear on this record is the same thing that started it, which is just piano, just this lovely little piano riff going. And then in the last moment, he does the boom, 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 boom. And the second I hear that final like low end piano note, I just want to start the whole thing over again. Like just take the final, flip it. Well, this final is 2 vinyls, so you have to go back to vinyl 1.
Side A.
Yeah, side A. Spotify, bring me back to the beginning. CD, click, back to the beginning. Like, it's that kind of thing where it's just so cyclical. It starts with piano, it ends with piano. It's just, I really don't know how to, again, I don't know how to talk about this album in any way that can really express how I feel about it, which is just simply to say, I think it is masterful. There is not a single second, not a single moment that is wasted. There is literally not a nanosecond of this thing I would change. And every time I hear it, the journey from track 1 to final track, it is in that moment, like my favorite thing in music ever. Now, obviously, Rain and Blood, I value highly. Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City, MF Doom's Mad Villainy. Like those are all records I would say are like the greatest of all time. But there are many days where I just go, you know what? Colors is it. Nothing can beat Colors. It is just perfection across the board.
I think to somebody who this is their favorite record of all time, this is not heavy music perfected. This is a music perfected. Yep. This is the concept of the emotional and physical response to what music will do and the way it attaches to memories and feelings and circumstances. Perfected into an hour and 5 minutes. And I think there should be a mix of this record where it's 1 song. No cut.
I mean, honestly, just start on track 1 on Spotify and just go through the whole thing and just never look at your phone. That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
And I say all of that. I say all that to say this is literally, of every single album we've talked about on this podcast, this is literally my number 1, because we haven't talked about Rain and Blood on the podcast unless you listen to that one sidebar I did, right? But of all the albums we've talked about in an album Fight Club perspective, this is easily number 1 for me. It's not even close. Like Master of Puppets, I love it. It's not this. Paranoid, Number of the Beast, Wish You Were Here, like all the stuff we've talked about, Van Halen 1, none of them are batting up to this average, for me at least. And what's interesting about this is that Colors 1 released in 2007. And for years upon years upon years, it was like BT Bam releases Parallax 2. I love Parallax 2. They released Coma Ecliptic. It's all right. It's got good stuff. They released Automata 1 and 2. Really cool. And I'm like, man, but nothing will ever top Colors for me. And then out of the blue, one day somewhere in the early 2020s, they say, oh, we're making Colors 2. And I go, huh, that's interesting. Really? You're going to try and do Colors again? And they go, yeah. And I've read the interviews and read the research and done the research, which is to say that Tommy, the vocalist, he often made the claim that the reason they did Colors 2 is because they were at this moment in their career, was this really defining moment of when they first did Colors 1, it was like, okay, we're this like kind of known band in the metal scene, but we're not hugely popular. And then they release Colors and suddenly everybody in metal scene knows this album, knows them, right? They get to this new moment in 2020, I forget what it was, 21, 22, where they go, okay, pandemic happened. We haven't been touring. Nobody's been touring really because of the whole pandemic situation. We have to do something big because, touring is our lifeblood, right? We release albums, but we love touring. So they go, okay, this is going to be another landmark moment in our career. I've already got some issues, which is to say that, let me start by saying, I think Colors 2 is a really great record. On its own, I think Colors 2 has a lot going for it that's really great. My immediate problem is it's the fact that it's called Colors 2. I really think this record should not be called Colors 2. I think
agree.
It should be called, I don't know, Double Helix of whatever, or call it Human as Hell. Just call it something else than Colors 2. Because the second you call it Colors 2, in my mind, I'm going, okay, this has to hold up as well as Colors 1 or be like really, really close. Because, I think of Lord of the Rings and I think of Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King. And for me, all three of those things are just like amazing. Absolutely 10 out of 10 personally. Colors 1 for me is a 10 out of 10 record. Colors 2 is not 10 out of 10. It's still good. I would still give it like an 8, but it's not the lineage that Colors is. And throughout this record, they have callbacks to Colors 1. So it'd be hard to call this Human as Hell and then have all these random moments where you're like, that's literally Colors right there. You're calling back to that. But right off the jump, I just have to say that I'm not a fan of this thing being called Colors 2. And there's a lot of fans, BT Bam fans, who are like, this album's amazing. It's right there with Colors 1. Maybe not as good as Colors 1, but like second favorite album by them. It definitely deserves to be called Colors 2. I don't personally see that.
I agree. I think Colors 2 is good. Not only, in my opinion, they should have called it, like Human as Hell or something like that. Very, very few of these songs even match up to the moments on Colors.
Yeah.
And I think it's because sometimes with Colors 1, for example, you step into greatness because you have to. Not because you want to. Because you strive to create an experience or an aura or an atmosphere, whatever you'd like to call it, that will then transcend that piece of work forever. Which is why I think Colors succeeds so well. Because not only do you get jazz kids, you get metal kids, you get death metal kids, you get country kids listening to these things, instrumental fans. Colors 2 is very strange because it doesn't even feel like they tried to get back into the same mindset. It feels like they looked at the blueprints of Colors 1 and said, oh, well, let's just expand on it. You can't.
Yeah.
There's no
It's
need
hard to top perfection.
It is. And the argument for perfection is all of perfection is based in its imperfections. Colors' imperfections are the fact that it's people really trying. And I think that is what makes it succeed so well. Because sure, if you've only ever listened to Death, your favorite band of all time is Death. Yeah, you probably do not give a fuck about the weird Parisian section on Colors 1,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But you probably respect it. Oh, that's cool. They tried it. This could have been something totally different. And to me, To me, I think that it is granted, I will never make anything in this caliber of art. This is beyond my technical ability as a human. I would love to one day learn how to master my instrument in a factor where I could play this long, this intense, and write something so captivating. But as someone who has now listened to it many times, it doesn't match up to Colors One in any capacity.
Do you think it's a good record? Like, what would you give it out of 10?
Out of 10, I mean, I'd give it like a 6.
Wow. Okay. I won't go that far. I do think this is a great record. In fact, I would say it's probably my third favorite from them, with Parallax 2 being my number 2. Like I said, though, I don't think this is anywhere near Colors 1. And the thing, too, is that they've done sequel records, right? Parallax 2, I just said, is my second favorite. The thing is, though, Parallax 1 came out in 2011. Parallax 2 came out in 2012. Automata 1 and Automata 2 came out in the same year. You're talking about Colors 1 came out in 2007. And Colors 2 comes out in 2022, I think it was. Like, all this span of time that you could have made the sequel record, and now you decide to do it. And I get it from their perspective. Like, I know what they're trying to do. For me, though, it's just not quite up to Colors 1. Now, with all that being said, Cody, we're already an hour and 16 into it, and we haven't talked about anything on Colors 2, so I say we might as well talk about it, right? And I think we'll probably go through this quicker than Colors 1, just because both of us aren't quite jazzed about it as Colors 1. But like I said earlier, they do things that are very Colors in spirit, right? They open with monochrome, which is a piano intro, right? So they did it on Colors 1, they do it on Colors 2. And I would like to separate these two and say, you know what? It's called Colors 2, but let's just remove that for a second and say it's called Human as Hell. Let's just run with that, right? Human as Hell as a record, opening with monochrome. I love monochrome. I think it's a beautiful opener. I want to follow that up by saying it's not Foamborn A, but I also don't want to do that. I don't want to keep comparing them, but you kind of have to.
Right.
Also because we're doing Album Fight Club, we're destined to compare them, but
yeah, well, that's kind of the issue, because this is almost like if Pink Floyd was like, if Roger Waters came back and they used AI for Rick Wright and they were like, hey, Dark Side of the Moon Part 2.
Yeah, that would.
It's like you can't, because in my opinion, Monochrome, fine song. It feels like someone who has gone through significant life experiences attempting to reconnect with their younger self, but not understanding why their younger self created this art. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's a really hard thing to listen to. Because sure, you get to Parallax 1 and 2. Fantastic records in their own right, because they're not attempting to be their younger selves.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird to try to call back to something you did in an honest way.
Especially 15 years removed from what you did.
15 years removed. I mean, with different members of the band and things like that, you know?
Well, to be fair, the same members have been in the group since Colors 1. Except Dusty, who currently got Me Too'd, so he's currently not in the band.
Yeah.
But he did write on Colors 2, and he did perform on Colors 2. It was just shortly thereafter he got... Well, we don't quite know where Dusty is. We don't know if he's going to be part of the band again. But it is the same guys. It's just older guys trying to redo what they did. And the funny thing is, Monochrome and Double Helix, which are the first two songs, they're literally Foamborn A and Decade of Statues.
Yeah.
In fact... Double Helix, the opener of Double Helix, is literally Decade of Statues. Mm-hmm. It's the exact same thing. And it's like, why are we doing this? Right. This is great because it was great back then, but you're just doing the same thing. Now, when Double Helix breaks into new stuff, I like it a lot. There's this moment in like 2 minutes into the song where, I don't know if you recall this, but it's like this weird crash cymbal thing.
Uh-huh.
Where it's like boom, dun 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 dun, like that part's really cool, and they're doing new creative things that I haven't heard them do before. But it's all under this guise of, oh, this is the sequel to Colors 1, and it's like, I don't know if I can quite get over that, which is my issue with this record. I would love to separate the two, but yeah, I don't. That's not to say I hate this. I still love not all of it, right? I like this a lot, but it's so hard to get over this hump for me of this whole Colors 2 thing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, God, I feel bad, but it's like The beautiful thing about Colors One is, in this case, my biggest issue with it, where Colors One tries so much all the time, it's almost hard to differentiate exactly what's happening on Colors Two. But I think that's also because they've chopped it up into more songs. I think that's what makes Colors One so fun. You know, it's
Mhm.
like each song was a little longer, but you had these moments. Instead of making each moment their own song, you just jammed it. You said, all
Yeah.
right, that's going here. That's how we're doing it. And you're going to
Mhm.
either get on the train or you're not going to get onto it.
And we saw this. We saw this whole thing live.
Yeah.
And I mean, personally, I enjoyed the show. I liked it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great record. Obviously, they're playing the hell out of it. I like it a lot. And it's got similar vibes to Colors One, which is this part of me that goes, well, maybe it should be called Colors Two because you get to Revolution and Limbo, which is,
Mhm.
and I know we're flying through these songs, but you get to Revolution and Limbo, and you've got this power chorus moment of over and over, and it's like, this is great. It's fist pumping. I love it. And then they do this total 180 into like this Latin samba thing.
Crazy.
Right? It's this total between the buried and me move. It's like this came out of nowhere, and yet it works so well. But the weird thing here is that they basically ride that through a huge portion of the song, like 2 or 3 minutes, is this Latin samba thing. Whereas on Colors One, that moment would have been like 20 seconds long.
Yeah.
But I love it in that I love what it's doing. I love the we are not meant to survive this. The whole we are not meant to survive. Like that's I really like that moment. I think it's really cool. I like what's going on here. And removing itself right on Human as Hell, I think this is amazing. I think it's such a cool, awesome, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
On Colors 2, it's still beautiful and awesome, and I love it. But there's this part of me that's like, it's not, nothing here's elevating to Colors 1 for me.
I agree.
So I'm really, trust me, I'm trying to like remove this from what it is, but.
No, I will admit, going from like, Fix the Error is a really good song.
Oh, Fix the Error is one of my favorites on the whole record.
Fun song.
Because it's so like, it's so different. That this is a moment where this was nothing on Colors One. Sounds like this. You get this whole extended drum solo, which is insane, right? And you didn't get any of that in Colors One. The longest drum solo on Colors One was like a fill, like leading into Son of Nothing, right? So this kind of thing is amazing and removed from the whole situation we have here. I think it's great. Have you actually seen the music video for Fix the Error? It's a really fun music video. It's this animated one. It's very funny. If you have the time, I would suggest looking it up. But what's funny on the music video is that they get guest drummers. Like I'm pretty sure they get Mike Portnoy to play a part of the drum solo. It's cool. In fact, it's this really fun moment where right after the drum solo, it's like this really bright section. It's like the hoedown moment from Colors One, but like not, but also the same sort of vibe. It's cool. It's really great. It's BT Bam doing the great stuff, separated and removed from itself. But then you get, I can't believe it. It's Future, never seen Future Shock, which is probably my second favorite song on this record.
Yeah.
If you remove I don't want to keep saying if you remove yada, 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 right? I just want to talk about this stuff on its own merits, but like, the first 2 minutes of this song are amazing.
Yes.
So killer, so good. And they do the BT Bam thing where shortly thereafter they get into like this pirate. Like I can only describe it like pirates.
It's like, such a pirate move.
It's like a swashbucklers on the seven seas, and like you're hoisting the sails and hoisting the mooring line and like just like clear skies, and you got the captain with his spyglass. Like really, really fun and really cool. Really love this kind of stuff that they do. The chorus, amazing chorus. But then they go back into the heavy stuff. You get this breakdown at like 6 minutes in, which is fucking killer.
Yep.
Like just grinds your face into the ground. Then you go back to the futuristic and the pirate stuff and like all this stuff. And it's a great example of what BT Bam does well, which is they do 100 different things in one song, but it still feels like one unified song. And yeah. I think that's their charm. That's their greatness. That's what makes them who they are.
I think I would like this. This is such a shithead opinion. I would like this record more if all of these songs, I complain about this all the time on this podcast. This is the exception to the rule. If all of these songs were 11 or 12 minutes long, this would be perfect for covers too. It's breaking it up into all of these little sections. Like that's what does it for me. Because I think the whole thing about, so if we're going to call this record Human as Hell, yeah. Same names, same music, probably like a 7 out of 10. But you slam it up against, this is like if Dillinger Escape Plan came out with like Counting Infinity Part, or Calculating Infinity Part 2. It's like, you can't. You fucking can't. I'm sorry, I'm not your dad. You literally cannot do that. You were not those same people. And there's a reason why you grew from that, because you also learn the mistakes that come with this. But like, dude, Stare into the Abyss and Prehistory, that could have been the same song. That could have been one song.
Okay, so Stare and Prehistory, like Stare's pretty short among all things. It's not super long. I like Stare into the Abyss though. I think it's fun. It's got lovely piano work through most of it. But we get to Prehistory. Easily my least favorite song on the record. And the reason why is if you listen to this song, we've been talking about, BT Bam has these crazy moments where they do a hoedown out of nowhere. They do a Carney bit out of nowhere. There's this moment in this song where they insert these cartoon sounds.
Yeah, they
like I'm talking Looney Tunes, like just like the iconic slipping, like the slipping noise. Look, every other moment that BT Bam has done something like this, I have this moment where I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then the more I listen to it, I'm like, oh man, I'm loving it. I've probably heard this song 15 times now. And I hate it more and more every time I hear it. It is easily my least favorite BT Bam weird moment across all their records. It's like, what the hell are we doing? And where other people have heard all the other stuff, like the hoedown and the Carney moment, and gone, what is this? And I go, no, you just don't get it, right? You just don't understand. Yeah.
It's not making sense. This is too above your brain level. You should have your IQ.
Yeah, this is me becoming that person and being like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, what is this? Like, it's just too, it sounds weird to say, it's too strange. It's too weird. I don't know what the point was, Yeah. Yeah, Prehistory for me, I mean, it's got like mandolin, I think, in it, which is it's got moments. But that moment of the cartoon stuff, I'm like, I just kind of want to skip this song at this. And I never say that with BT Bam, right? I never say that. I never skip anything BT Bam.
Yeah.
But this moment, I'm like, this is just too weird. And what's amazing is that right after that, there's this great bass riffage happening. Mm-hmm. This little like isolated bass bit. That's great. And they go from like depths of, I don't like this to, oh yeah, right. It's Between the Bear to me, right? I love them. And this is what I love about them. It's just weird, man. I don't know. Like Colors 1 didn't have this, And the only reason I say that is because it's called Colors 2. If it was called Human as Hell, like I wouldn't be comparing this. I wouldn't be saying, oh, well, Colors 1 didn't do that. But they had to call this thing Colors 2 because like, why? I
don't know.
But what's funny is that right after that, you get Bad Habits. Yeah. Now, Bad Habits, by contrast, is like the best song on this goddamn record. It's
totally agree.
So good. Right. This, to me, Bad Habits is Colors 1. This is hitting that mark.
Yep.
Where I'm like, look, if you had 10 Bad Habits tracks, you could call this Colors 2 all day. I'm there. But you've got Bad Habits, which is Colors 1. Never Seen Future Shock. It's got moments where it's hitting it. A lot of this other stuff, though, it's not quite hitting Colors 1.
No.
But Bad Habits, man, oh my God. Like, the groove it's got going throughout most of it, I'm pretty sure it's like the heaviest song, right?
Yeah.
At least it feels like the heaviest song. Jason's favorite moment is on this track where you've got this like angelic vocal part that comes out of nowhere. But the thing is, right, they do the out of nowhere thing that BT Bam does. It's just gone. Next thing, right? They don't settle on it. They don't make it a big deal. They just move on.
It was so unbelievable. I thought that I had actually started having like a medical issue. Because when the part in the song came live, I did not have any earplugs in or anything like that. So I'm standing there directly in front of Jason and Mike, and just I get one bar of angels singing.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh? What? Typically in music, you would repeat it.
Yeah.
And I go, what? And I started looking up, like, am I okay? Am I having a stroke? Do I smell toast? And it was just so funny because I look over at Jason, and Jason is just, he's got this like smile.
Oh yeah.
Jason does this laugh. Can you do a Jason laugh, Mike?
I can't.
He's like,
it's totally Jason.
He's like, it's like a high pitched little squeak up, and he just does it one time. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we got him. He's laughing. Everybody's happy.
And it's got moments where it builds, right?
Yeah.
It builds to stuff like White Walls builds to moments, and it builds to this. In order to connect and forget is what he's saying in this, but I don't want to try and imitate what he's doing. But it's like, it's this great soaring moment of this album. And it's this great moment in between the Buried Me being Colors 1, where it's like, I am totally in this. I'm totally vibing with it. It's giving me the feelings I felt with Colors 1.
Right.
The problem is, it's just this song and a couple other moments on this record are giving me that. It's not the whole thing. So, I mean, and the funny, they have moments where they keep repeating Colors 1 stuff. And at the end of this song, they repeat Sleep On, Fly On in our minds, which is from Answer the Sky? I think it's from Answer the Sky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's like, oh, you're literally calling out Colors 1. But other than the fact that this thing is called Colors 2, why are you doing that? Right. It almost feels like you're doing that just so you can adequately say, oh, but it's Colors 2 because, that was on Colors 1. Remember that? And this musical motif we're doing in the last song, that was on Colors 1 too. Remember that? And it's like, yeah, I remember that. I remember it being on Colors 1. I remember liking it more there.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I will say Bad Habits is like such a killer song. Love that song.
Yeah.
Then you get to The Future Is Behind Us, which cool, great synth, right? A lot of synth work in this. They bring up the motif of Open the Closed Off Circle. Yep. Another Colors 1 callback. Okay, cool. The breakdown at 4 minutes in is like amazing, killer, earth-shattering, awesome. But you'll notice, I mean, if you haven't called on already, you'll notice Cody and I are kind of flying through this record. And I think it's abundantly clear why. Is that, at least in my perspective, right? I wouldn't give it a 6 out of 10. I wouldn't go that, but Cody's opinion is Cody's opinion. And that's fine. Personally, I think there's a lot of great stuff on here, but you're just comparing it to like arguably my favorite record ever. And it's just not even close. Sorry. It's just not even close.
So here's for anybody who's listening, here's my grading system for music. I always view it from two perspectives: how I listen to it on a recording, and then how it would make me feel in a live setting. I was lucky enough to go through both of these emotions in a period of like 4 months. Listening to Colors 2 a whole bunch, and then going to see it live. Which, granted, Mike and I got to experience something wonderful. We are a part of the first 1,000 people to ever hear Colors 2 live in its entirety. It's the first time they ever did it. Super cool. I mean, besides practices, which is an unbelievable honor. Very cool. So you go from night one, which is like almost a celebration of youth in a way. It's like people bringing people with their families, maybe with their kids. There's like old people, young people, people who are married, couples, people who are on their first dates. Like everybody's there to have a good time and celebrate between the Buried Me. You get to night 2, and it's like everybody feels a little more controlled. Everybody feels a little more like stiff. Like they're like everybody in the crowd itself is unsure. And that really sucks for me because I like to go to, I appreciate intense music because it allows me to move and feel something. I love the idea of being able to push myself off of somebody's shoulders above a crowd because there's an emotional response that comes to that. Or being able to look at like Tommy, during White Walls and scream with him, not at him, not to him, with him. So you get to Colors 2, and it's almost just like a really, really good attempt. But the final outcome does not match. And I think it really showed in the audience as well. Because there were about 100 less people, but it felt like that room was dead. people were having fun, but I mean, like, there were people dancing a little bit and everything. Nowhere near the pure, like, adrenaline and anticipation of night one.
I think what really speaks to it is night 2, we were back in our same spot. And there were these two guys next to us. And we struck a conversation with them early on in the night of night 2. We were like, oh, were you here last night? And they said, no. Colors 1 sold out, but there was still tickets for Colors 2 that we could get. I think right there, that says it all, right? That Colors 1 sold out, but Colors 2, probably the night we were there, probably sold out at its point, right?
Yeah.
But in trying to get tickets for Colors 1, nope, sold out. But hey, there's still Colors 2 tickets if you want them. I think that speaks to pretty bluntly and I think we're not alone in thinking that Colors 1 is better than Colors 2. But the sentiment I've gotten is that a lot of people really, really, really like Colors 2. And I like it a lot. I don't really, really, really like it. But beyond that, right?
Yeah.
We can quickly sum up the rest of the record because we're already pretty flying through this thing. Turbulent comes in, although I do want to say the future is behind us. I'm pretty sure that's the song where they do the chicka chicka. And I'm like, now I will say they do this like synthy sort of like that part's cool, but the whole chicka chicka thing, like, come on, man, what are we like? Are we some band in the 80s that did a one-hit wonder thing? Like, I don't know that the moments that they do that kind of thing on Colors 1, I'm like all there, but some of the moments they do it here, I'm just like, yeah, that was kind of weird. Like, that was weird. That wasn't cool weird. That was just weird.
Yeah.
But then Turbulent is a continuation of the synth idea. A lot of people say it's like the ballad of the album, which I'm inclined to agree. It's very ballady in nature. So in the same way that Monochrome and Double Helix were Foamborn A and Decade of Statues, literally Sufmato, I think is how it's pronounced, and Human as Hell is literally Viridian and White Walls. It's trying to do that, right? Sumato is this real. It's great though. It's this cool interlude. I'm pretty sure it's got shakuharis on it, which is like this Japanese flute.
Yeah,
like
it
this
totally
sort of like
does.
the samurai flute sound, which is like really, really cool. I love that sound. And it's this really cool, interlude with this like guitar work. It's great. It's not Viridian though. And then you get to Human as Hell, which Human as Hell has got a lot of great moments. It's not a bad song. It's got great stuff. But it's not White Walls.
Nope.
And one of my favorite movies ever is The Social Network. And I'm just going to make this real quick, right? I think it's literally the last line of the movie is this woman talking to Mark Zuckerberg. And she says, "You're not an asshole, Mark. You're just trying so hard to be. You're not White Walls, Human as Hell. You're just trying so hard to be."
Yeah.
Right? I listened to Human as Hell, and it's, White Walls has the, you see, the Human as Hell one is, but it's got like this, the riff is like kind of the same. Like you can hear White Walls in Human as Hell, but it's not White Walls. It's just trying so hard to be is the best way I can put it. And when you're trying to be like one of my favorite songs and you're not being that song, I can't help but listen to this whole song and just go like, I'd rather be listening to White Walls right now.
Yeah.
But if you had called this record Human as Hell, I wouldn't be thinking that, right? I would be thinking, oh, Human as Hell is this cool closer track. Obviously, it's not White Walls, but I'm not trying to compare the two, right? This is some other thing. But now that you call it Colors 2, I can't help but compare them. And you're doing similar things for Colors 1 that's not as good as it was on Colors 1.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's got the buildup. It's got cool vocal moments. It's another like 15-minute song. But what really sells me on like the whole like of the record, even though I still would rate it highly, is you think at the end of White Walls, you get to that monumental breakdown and like 5 minutes of just soaring work to lead to the end. Human as Hell, by contrast, just fucking ends. Right? It just ends with this like small little ditty, and then all the instruments just boom, and it like slowly fades out. And it's like, yeah, you can end the record that way, but you're trying to compete with Colors 1, and you're not going to try and do like build up to this huge moment.
Exactly.
Build up to this, right? Colors 2 doesn't build up to anything, in my opinion. It doesn't build up to Human as Hell. Human as Hell just happens to be the last song.
Right.
Colors 1 builds to White Walls. It builds to that moment. This doesn't. And for that, automatically you have to be like, well, I mean, it's not Colors 1. It's not even close to Colors 1, in my opinion.
Right.
Removed from itself, and I know I've said that dozens of times at this point, removed from itself, I like this record a lot. I think it's great. Like I said, it's probably my third favorite BT Bam in its own vacuum. Like just the vacuum of BT Bam records. Remove all the titles of the BT Bam records, and this is probably my third favorite. But on principle, I can't get behind the fact that this thing's called Colors 2, because you're just setting yourself up for failure at that point. Very few bands, I can't even think of one example, where a band has made a monumental record, and then years later, they made a sequel to it, and it was just as good. Like, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. And I think this is why. Because
it's impossible. Because the greatest joke about art is that it is all time sensitive. That's it. I mean, you look at things like even Picasso's construction with soft beans, Premonitions of War. That couldn't exist today. That could not come today without the advent of AI and things like that. You look at things like Dark Side of the Moon. You look at like one of my favorite records of all time, like Full Collapse by Thursday. Those are important because they are young people in a place making a statement of that time. You cannot set out to create something timeless. Something becomes timeless because of its time. It's a weird paradox. It's an unfair little circle. And then as we get older, we look back at our prior successes and wish we could stumble upon that the same way that we stumbled upon it initially. But you cannot find a road that you've traveled before. You know? Mm-hmm. What I wish Between the Buried and Me would have done is not called this Colors 2, and instead went into it with the mindset of, okay, we're just going to try it again. We're just going to try and be the band who didn't allow structure to navigate us, but instead allow us to navigate our structure. That's it. Music is all complacent to what we allow it to be. When you allow it to become complacent to who you want yourself to be and mimic a version of yourself that no longer exists, it's impossible. It's like Looper. You can't loop yourself,
Yeah. And, at least on my end, to finish this up, I'll say three things. The first, I agree with you in that I don't think this thing should be called Colors 2, but I've said that multiple times. Now, with that said, we would not have the concert experience we just had if it wasn't called Colors 2.
Exactly.
It wouldn't make any sense, right? If it was called Human as Hell, it can't be called the Colors experience anymore. So it was really cool to have Colors 1 and then Colors 2. Like, I liked that whole thing. Would I still not want to call this Colors 2? Yes, I think that is the case. Number 2 is, I completely blanked on what my number 2 was going to be because I was so into that moment there. In all the matchups we've had so far, and I hate to say this because I love this band and I love Colors 1 and I'd like Colors 2, but in all the matchups we've had on this podcast, I think this is the one where it's had the biggest divide between records. Where for me, agree. The albums we're comparing, it's like such a monumental divide between these two, right? Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, they're very good. They're very close. South of Heaven, Season of the Abyss, very close. Dark Side, Wish You Were Here, very close. Colors 1, Colors 2, I mean, Colors 1's on like a different continent than Colors 2 for me. And that's, I don't know, man, that like, I hate to say that. And I think we're in the minority if I had to guess. I've seen a lot of BT Bam chatter where it's like Colors 2's like their number 2 of all the BT Bam records. And it's like, I just don't see it. I don't think this should be called Colors 2 when so many other fans are just like fine with that. So I don't have a problem being in that minority. I think it's just strange that we think that. And it seems like we're kind of minority in that opinion. The third thing though, is I still think both these records have merit. I think you should still seek them out, especially if you're interested in getting into Between the Buried and Me. Colors 1 for sure. I think if you're just a person who's into metal music and you haven't heard it, go listen to that record because it's like
it's an achievement.
It's Mount Rushmore shit, Yeah. Colors 2 is not. I don't think it's anywhere near Mount Rushmore, but I think it's still worth listening to and saying, yeah, I've heard that record. Here's what I think about it. In the case of Colors 1 though, like, what are you doing if you like metal and you haven't heard this thing yet?
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't really have anything else to say. I feel kind of bad just rushing through Colors too, but I mean, when it comes to this album Fight Club, I think we've made it abundantly clear for us. There's no contest here. It's not even close.
To give Colors 2 some merit, I'm sorry if anybody from any camp between the Barrett and me listens to this. Between the Barrett and me, take an opportunity to listen to this. To give Colors 2 some merit, it is a wonderful exercise to attempt to reconnect with your younger self and attempt to communicate through music how maybe you once felt. That's beautiful. The end product does not speak to who they ended up being. But at the end of the day, nor myself or Mike could have written any of this music.
Absolutely.
We say this as F market music journalists. We say this as people where we don't make any money off of this. Mike and I could not have even made a coherent attempt at this.
Entirely true.
But when so early on you make the decision that you are going to reinvent yourself, inevitably that decision is going to rear its head when you have to do it again. Sometimes the attempt is really, really hard. There's a reason that Michael Jordan went back to basketball. Not a bad baseball player, but man, really good basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but there's still merit. And you know what? If you're into learning how to play more advanced guitar techniques, this is your template. This is it. Top to bottom. Learn how to play colors and you'll get everything down.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's iconic. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got to talk about Colors for like an hour.
Yeah.
Your Colors 2, you know, but Colors 1, that's my dark side of the moon, really. It's just like everything for my musical chemistry.
So, Mike, now that you've had an opportunity to expel your feelings about Colors 2, I would like to give you the opportunity to think for a second and see if you could really express how Colors 1 makes you feel.
I don't think I can. I can only describe it as there is something in my chemistry. I've said chemistry a couple times. That Colors 1 hits that nothing else does. I actually recorded prior to this a sidebar where I'm going through my vinyl collection. I released the rap one. I just did one for my heavy metal records. I haven't released it yet because I don't think I need to release it back to back. But it's in the pocket for when I need to release it. And there's a moment where I show off my Colors vinyl. And I literally say in that moment, we're doing an episode on this. I don't want to overhash this record because if you want to know, go listen to that. But there's this second where I say, like, all I know is that when I heard this thing, there's something chemically in me that changed. Same thing happened when I listened to Rain and Blood. Same thing happened when I listened to Mad Philly. Something in me just sort of clicked and shifted. Very few records do that. There's a lot of records I would give a 10 out of 10. I think giving something an 11 out of 10 is kind of stupid. Like, it's just kind of like flawed in design.
Yeah.
But if I were to do that, if I were to hand out an 11 out of 10, this would be it, probably. Obviously I would give that to Rain and Blood and Mad, sure, right? But there's very few records that I would be like inclined enough to give an 11 out of 10. This is one of them. It just does something that I can't quite describe. And like I said when we were talking about it in length, the journey of this record is probably my favorite musical journey on any record I've ever heard, where track 1 to track end, got it. Rain and Blood, right? It's 29 minutes long. It's not that much of a journey. I love the shit out of it, but like, it doesn't take me on this huge epic journey like Colors 1 does. And so for that, I think it's just very special to me.
And there you have it.
There you have it.
Mike came on Colors.
Yeah, we're almost at the 2-hour mark, so I think we should just leave it here because I don't want to go too overboard. But Cody, thank you for being here as always.
Mike, thank you for giving me the opportunity to not only get back into Between the Buried and Me, but also go with you and our dear friend Jason to see the Colors experience, where I did get to watch Jason almost get into a fist fight with a grown man.
When was this?
We were standing up. There was those guys behind us. They kept bumping into him, and he kept being like, "Will you guys?" He was like, "Will you stop?" It's very
Oh,
funny.
huh. I don't remember that at all.
Aggressive Jason is very funny.
Yeah. Whatever, right? We're not going to get into yet another story. It was a very good, fun experience, though. I agree with you in that. I'm glad we got to do it. And like you said, we were one of the first 1,000 people to see Colors 2 in its entirety played live, which I think is pretty cool. It's a special little thing we can hold on to.
It was. And you know what, Mike? At least here on Album Fight Club, our true colors will always come out.
I see what you did there. It was very, very clever. We're going to leave it there, though, because I don't think we can get any more clever than that.
Okay.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for being you. And see you on the next one.
Take care, everybody.